Hello again. I'm back with another clock to repair. This one is an Ingraham Mantel clock. I found it at a local thrift store about 2 years ago. It needs a lot of work, and I just put it on the side and finally have some time to take a look at it. It has a lot of issues. It's missing the glass on the front. The dial just sort of floats around. The hour hand is loose. I have plugged it in and know that it does run, but it is a bit noisy. There's also a power loss indicator on here that doesn't seem to be working properly. I'm going to turn it around. Somewhere along the way, someone looks like they applied tape to the back for some reason, and I think it pulled off a lot of the finish. There is a date stamp on the bottom of the clock that says 8/32. So I believe this was made in August of 1932, which makes it a 93-year-old clock. Anyway, let me get this set up on my work table and we'll start to take it apart. The first thing I want to do is to remove the hands. This feels pretty snug. There we go. There's a small nut holding the hands. Let's try loosening that. Okay, not bad. Okay, minute hand and the hour hand. All right, next I'm going to look to remove the whole clock from the case. So I have to remove this whole insert. There's a couple of screws holding it in. The problem is I have to remove the set knob. Normally this thing is not recessed. It would be flush with the case and the set knob would be sticking out a little bit, so it's easy to pull it up, grab the stem with a pair of pliers, and either, hopefully this is threaded, and we try to unscrew it. But because it's recessed, I really can't get down here to grab it. But fortunately, I have a curved hemostat which gets in there nicely, and turns out it's a reverse thread. Turning it to the right seems to loosen it. There we go. Now let's undo these couple of screws. Little plastic washer with it. And there's a couple of screws holding this whole plate to the case. All right. That's, from what I see, that's very different from what I've seen before with these Ingraham clocks. I'm gonna have to, let me loosen up this wire here so I have room to pull it through the case. to say, when I started to work on this, when I first saw it, I was thinking that it's another Ingraham, so it's probably going to be pretty similar to other ones that I've repaired here. But this is totally different from anything that I've ever seen. All right, give me a few minutes to figure out how I'm going to take it apart. And once I have an idea of what I'm doing, I'll continue. Okay, what I'm seeing is, number one, it's a very unusual setup as far as how it's wired. Has a very small coil, the smallest I've ever seen. And there's one wire coming out of the coil, this green wire here, and we have a wire nut holding one end of the wire, but this one has sort of a terminal and it's screwed onto it. Secondly, when I look inside of the gears, there's a lot of dirt built up in there. To remove the dial, there are some tabs bent around the rim. I have to undo those. But the first thing I want to do is let's plug it in and see whether it's working or not. All right, plugged in. Let me turn it on. And it looks like it's running. Let me pop on the second hand so we can see it better. So it does seem to be working. However, I still plan to take it apart. But the first thing that I want to do is, I'm concerned in manipulating this and pulling on this wire, because the last thing I want to do is end up breaking this wire that's coming out of the coil. If that breaks off, I'm kind of out of luck. So let's try to remove the wire nut. Just going nice and easy. I don't want to break anything here. All right. I might as well remove this one as well. Okay, this wire is a wire coming out of the other side of the coil. And that's what's screwed onto here. A combination of a washer, and a screw on top of that. All right, let's put this aside. Let's take this off of here. And put the wire aside. Another thing I'm noticing is there are what started out as sort of a rubbery type of a washer holding this whole movement to the front plate here, but these dry out and get very brittle and hard. And I see just by touching it, it starts to flake off. So I know that when I take this apart, these are probably gonna crumble on me, and I'll have to come up with a replacement. First, let's undo the rim. Here's a piece of that very same washer, all dried out and brittle. The dial is kind of beat up. I don't know how much of this is dirt that'll come off, but we'll see what we can do with it. Another thing I'm noticing when I mentioned that it looked as if the power interruption indicator wasn't working properly, that's this lever over here. And when the power is on, it should be white, and when it goes off, it should drop down to red, but it's going the other way. You can see a little bit of the red showing through there. So hopefully I can figure out a way to reposition this to get it working properly. Anyway, let me take another close look to figure out how I'm going to remove this. Another thing I just noticed, which makes this clock different from anything else that I've worked on, is that it has two coils, one over here and one over here. And there's also a couple of those hard, what used to be, I guess, a rubber washer, cushioning it on either side. Those are probably going to crumble when I remove this, but we'll see if I even have to take this plate off or not. In any event, to remove the whole mechanism from the plate, I have to undo these 4 nuts. So let's do that first. There's 2, 3, and 4. There's also a washer here. Okay. Try to lift this off. Now you can see how these are all crumbling. Here's your power indicator. Anyway, the next step, I want to somehow separate these 2 plates to get access to the gears. I'm going to have to take these washers off of here. And let me take a closer look. I'm thinking this just can be pried right off, but I don't want to try to do that until I know for sure that's the way to go. So give me a couple of minutes here and let me clean up this mess a little bit. I've cleaned off all of the crumbling washers that were sitting here, also what was stuck to this plate. I found what I hope to be some replacement washers that fit rather well, and it's the same thickness as what I took off. So I think this will work pretty much to act as a spacer between these 2 plates. And what I'm going to try to do now is remove this top plate. Let me zoom in a little for that. Let's see about getting this part out of here. Okay. That went there. This comes off. This comes off. This comes out. So at the very least, I'm going to clean everything up. A lot of dirt and oil and grease in here. And what I'm seeing on this is it appears that there's a couple of screws on each side here. And if I undo those, I think I'm able to lift this plate off from the motor, which will give me a chance to take a look at it, see if that can be cleaned and or lubricated. So I'll look to undo these next, and then I'll continue. I've removed 3 of the 4. I'll take out the last one. And it dropped right off. Now that doesn't turn very easily, does it? But we know it works. All right, not really much to clean here or to lubricate. So what I'm going to do instead, we'll clean up the plate. We'll clean up these gears and parts. On this one, this comes off. Looks like a little part, a washer here. Don't want to lose that. Not sure yet how these come off. Take a closer look. But even if I can't, I can still put all this in my ultrasonic and it'll clean up quite well. So let me get to work on doing just that. I was able to remove one of these gears. That slides out. This one feels loose. I can press it up, but it seems to be sitting underneath this gear, which is riveted in place. I can't remove that one. So this might be as good as it gets as far as taking it apart, but I'm still going to go ahead and clean everything up. The parts have all been cleaned. I'm just waiting for everything to dry, but I noticed one interesting thing. What kind of bothered me a little bit is the set knob on this clock looked very odd to me, even though it seemed to fit. However, when I tried it back on to the stem, for whatever reason, now the threads are not engaging at all. It just won't tighten up. And I realized what this really looks like is the little decorative top to the posts that hold 400-day clocks. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. It really looks like this. This is the one that was on my clock now. So I think that this set knob was lost, which is not unusual when they are threaded, because if someone turns it the wrong way, it'll come off, and that's how they end up getting lost. However, I was able to come across a suitable set knob that is threaded and does tighten up on here quite well. So this will be my replacement, and I think it's going to work fine. And now we're just back to waiting for everything to dry up so I can look to lubricate and reassemble it. Everything is dry. Let me zoom in a little. The first thing I want to do is reattach the motor to the plate. Now I just have to seat and tighten up the 4 screws. I'll do the other 3 on my own. The motor is secured. Next, I have to lubricate the parts and reposition them. To do that, I use an oil pin with some synthetic clock oil, and you just place a little bit at the pivots on the end of the gears, as well as around the holes in the plates where they fit into. And as far as putting this back together, this will go here, and this goes here. This slips through here. This goes here, and this through here. Next, I have to sort of tease and guide the pivots into the holes in the plates and then secure it with the 4 nuts along with this plate. And that'll take me a few minutes, so let me do that on my own. I've got it back together, and what I did was I seated the nuts just to hold it in position to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. And what I have to do now is I'm going to remove the nuts, seat the washers as a spacer, then place the plate over it, and then secure it again with the nuts. And again, let me do that on my own. I've got everything back together, and one thing I'm noticing now is that I think the power interruption indicator is working properly, because when I turn it now I'm seeing both red and white. In fact, if I seat the dial, I don't know if you can see the red through there or not, but it's going from red to white when I turn it now. So hopefully this will function properly once everything's back together. What I want to do next is work on cleaning up the case as well as the dial. I'm not sure if this is scuff marks or dirt all along here, but we'll try to clean that up. And for the case, and one thing, when I mentioned I thought the clock was made in August of '32, here's the date code on the bottom, that 832. And considering that it's as old as it is, it's in pretty decent condition, other than there's some sticky adhesive here where tape was on it. And you can see the remnants of the tape on the back. So I'm going to try to clean and polish all of that. And once that's completed, I'll look to put everything back together. So let me get to work on this. I'm also going to look to restore the plate that fits on the back of the clock. I'll look to repaint this, and it's really quite interesting. The data plate here reads, Ingraham, established 1824, self-starting synchronous motor clock, operates only on controlled 60-cycle AC, 100 to 125 volts, 2 to 3 watts. And then it reads, not guaranteed if tried on other circuits, mechanical patents pending, and it's the E. Ingraham Company, Bristol, Connecticut, USA. And the bit about it not being guaranteed is, back in the 30s, the power supply from electric companies wasn't as reliable as it is today. I had read that some of them were 60 cycle, some could be 50 cycle, which would affect how these things would run. Anyway, let me get to work on cleaning and polishing. I covered the data plate with some blue tape, and now I'm ready to spray paint it. I spray painted the back plate. Looks pretty good. Now I just have to remove the tape. That's not bad at all. I also cleaned all the dirt off of the case. I got at a lot of the adhesive that was from whatever tape was here, but I couldn't get all of it. The sticky part, though, I was able to remove that. A lot of dirt came off of it. And what I'm going to do next is go over it with my Howard's Restore Finish, and I'll just kind of give you a look at what that does. this is what I use, Howard's Restorer Finish. You just wipe it on. And then wipe it right off. And you can see the difference. So I'm going to go over the whole case with this. And then I'll probably give it a wax coat as well. I've gone over the case, and considering that it's a 93-year-old clock, I think this is in really good condition and looks good. As far as the wax polish, I'll do that at the end when everything's back together, because there's just too much handling that I'll be doing on it, which will probably mess it up a bit. What I have to do next is place the dial back on the clock, seat the hands, and I was able to go through my parts department and came up with a piece of glass for it. But this needs to be cleaned up. I want to do the same thing. I want to clean up and see if I can polish the brass rim, as well as clean up the hands a bit. So let me get to work on all of that, and then we'll continue. Everything is cleaned and polished. What I want to do now is seat the dial back onto the clock, and the way it fits is there's a couple of tabs at the 12 and the 6 which fit into slots on the plate here. But once it's seated, there's still a little bit of play in terms of rotating it. So I have placed some double-sided tape on it, which I'm hoping will keep everything from moving. Okay, now I'm going to seat the hands. We start with the hour hand on the 12, and actually the minute hand locks, it's a rectangle shape, so I have to place the minute hand first and then rotate it to the 12. There we go. Then remove it and seat the hour hand. Back with the minute hand. And we have to place a small nut here. And then the second hand will fit over that. Next, I'm going to place the glass in the rim and position it over the whole thing. But before I do that, I'm going to temporarily place the set knob. And I want to make sure that I can turn the hands without them interfering with each other. See that it hit the hour hand there. All right, that's looking good. So the glass, place in the rim. Now I just have to bend over the tabs to lock it into position. I'll do that on my own. The rim and the glass are secure. And what I have to do now is attach the power cord. But before doing that, I have to pass it through the back plate and the case. I've also came up with a rubber grommet, which gives it more of a finished look. And first the wire goes through here. And this will go in the back of the case. And now I have to attach one wire here with the wire nut, and this was attached with the screw, and I'm just going to do that on my own. What you want to do first, though, is place a knot in the wire. And that way, if anyone pulls on the cord, you're not going to rip it off of the motor. So anyway, let me get to work on attaching the wire here. I've got it connected. Now I can place it back into the case. And I'll cushion the glass with that towel again. Okay, so I need to place the 2 screws here, a couple of screws here, and the set knob. Let me work on that on my own, and then I'll be ready to set it up, and we'll make sure everything's working. Everything's back together. Before setting it up, though, I want to give it a wax polish, and then I'll be ready to give it a test run. So let me work on that. I've finished waxing it, and I think it came out looking really good. I have it plugged in. Let me turn it on. And it's running. So there you have it. It's an Ingraham mantel clock, which has a motor that has 2 coils, something I've never seen before. This one was made in August of 1932, makes it 93 years old. And the last thing that I want to try to show is if the power interruption indicator is functioning properly. And to demonstrate that, let me just zoom in a bit. Right now, I just turned it on, and it's actually showing red. It's hard to see. And if I flip the little lever, it'll turn white. Hopefully you can see that. And if the power gets interrupted, turn it off, it drops down to red. I put it back on, flip it again. It's back up to white. In any event, I hope you enjoyed the video. I look forward to any questions and comments that you may have on it. I try to answer every one of them. And that pretty much wraps things up. Bye for now.